I'm Mac Watley. I'm the county history librarian at the Randolph County Library, and I'm a lifelong resident of Randolph County, and also the chairman of the America 250 committee here in Randolph County. We're all here today about that because April 1775 was the beginning of the Revolutionary Era. The end of the Revolutionary Era was September 1783. So that's why we're calling this America 250. But in Randolph County, our own special 250 is 2029 because 1779 is when Randolph County was created. And then in Franklinville, our special 250 will be 1781, the anniversary of David Fanning and Andrew Hunter having their altercation on Faith Rock. So in the Randolph room, I get the question quite a bit. Did anything important happen here? What kind of history do we have? And wasn't Randolph County just, on the fringe of the American Revolution? Wasn't North Carolina just on the fringe of the American Revolution? And obviously that's not true. And over the next few years, we'll hear a lot more about how history happened in the South, especially during the Revolution, and how it ended up at Yorktown. But in Randolph County, we weren't just on the edge. We were, in a lot of ways, right in the middle, just like we still are today. Randolph County is in the center of North Carolina and the center of a lot of other stuff. Just like here in Asheboro, we're on the fall line. Water that goes on that side of Fayetteville Street goes into the ocean at Wilmington. When it falls on this side of Fayetteville Street, it goes to the ocean at Charleston. We can consider ourselves in the middle of just about anything. But we're also at a crossroads, even in the 18th century, even in the 17th century, when the first settlers started coming through here. It was because of the Indian past that they had made over thousands of years. So we definitely weren't the first inhabitants in this area. But the trails were what brought people to our area in particular. The Occoneechee Trail, Indian Trail, went from Petersburg, Virginia to Augusta, Georgia, diagonally that way. Crawford's Path went from Julian to Sherall in South Carolina, north and south on this side. Moore's Road went from Johnsonville to South Carolina on the west side. The Moravian Road went diagonally from Fayetteville to Winston-Salem with the Moravians. And there's just all those roads funneled people into the area, especially the one from Winston-Salem, because that was where the Great Wagon Road came from Pennsylvania going into the south. And that brought Germans into this area from Pennsylvania. They Lutherans, they settled around Liberty. Dunkards, Mennonites, and Amish settled in around the Uwharrie. And even Moravians who got kicked out of Salem settled in the Uwharrie. And that's where our pottery symbol of Randolph 250 came from. The Moravian potter Jacob Meyer, who got kicked out of Salem for not being sufficiently pacifist. And I wrote about that 50 years ago after doing the archaeological dig at Mount Shepherd 50 years ago. So we had a lot of people coming in here, but the most important ones on the 18th century were the Quakers. They came here from eastern North Carolina, around Wayne County, Goldsboro. They came down from Pennsylvania, from Maryland, from New Jersey. They settled right in the center of the county on Deep River down towards Holly Spring, on Back Creek, around Back Creek Friends Meeting, right at Center Friends Meeting, right on the edge of Guilford County. They're right in the middle. And then especially the Nantucket Quakers who came here from the island of Nantucket, first settled in New Garden up in Guilford County, and then came on down to Randolph. We also had Scotch-Irish Presbyterians from moving here from New Jersey and Delaware. and they settled on Polecat Creek and Stinking Quarter and right there between Randleman and Liberty. And we had enslaved people from Africa who, even with Quakers, we had slave owners here. And sooner or later, we had freedmen here, people, enslaved people who had been freed by judicial order or by their owners. And that was a Quaker thing too, because Quakers were not supposed to own slaves according to their religion. So the other important thing to remember is that 250 years ago, this wasn't even Randolph County. It wasn't even Asheboro. So it was Guilford 250 years ago exactly. Guilford County had been created in 1771. 6 years before that, it was Orange County on the east side. It was Rowan County on the west side. The line ran right down the middle. So creating a new county allowed for new politics and new politicians. The government wasn't exactly of the people and by the people then. It was really government by men, adult white men who owned a certain amount of property, who served in the military, who would take a religious loyalty oath. The militia was universal compulsory military service for men over 16 years old. It was the fundamental organizing structure of government in all of North Carolina, in all of the South for that matter. Men were required to muster in neighborhood companies 4 times a year and bring their rifle and ammunition if they're in the infantry, and bring all their weapons and a horse if they're in the cavalry. Attendance was required at musters because all voting took place during a muster, and the Army was a democracy. First, privates voted for the company officers, ensigns, which is the guy who carried the flag, lieutenants, captains, and constables. Constables were like policemen, and patrollers who were basically sheriff deputies, but mainly were charged with catching escaped slaves. Musters also voted for president and congressmen, but not senators. They were elected by the state legislature. Then all the captains got together and voted for the major and for the lieutenant colonel. Majors and colonels later elected the general. Election as a captain came with military responsibility, but also governmental responsibilities. Road maintenance and tax collection were done by each captain's district. From among the group of captains, the governor would appoint some to serve as justices of the peace, about 30 men who took turns, 3 or 4 at a time, sitting as the county court of pleas in quarter sessions. That was the real county government and the real court, the real judges who punished people. And punishments then were not just jail time, it was the stocks where you had to sit with your feet immobilized, the pillories, you had your arms immobilized, the whipping post, branding, and cropping ears. All those were punishments at the time for various offenses. The biggest problem in the area, though, was not law breaking as much as it was taxation without representation, not taxes on teas and papers, stamps like in the big northern cities, but the problem down here was taxes on property and the fees required to buy and sell land. The Earl of Granville had been dead for more than 10 years by 1776, and until his estate was settled, nobody could buy or sell land in this area. As soon as the state government was organized, that was one of the first things they started, was land offices, so people could enter the land that they might have been living on for years. And they'd already improved, like cut the trees and open up fields and built houses, but they weren't legal owners of it yet. So all that, the legal problems, the tax problems, were one of the causes of the regulation, which was the popular uprising that happened between 1768 and 1771 against the colonial tax collectors. And the defeat of the regulators there at the Battle of Alamance led directly to the creation of Guilford County, because newer, smaller counties would allow easier participation in musters and elections and public service. So in January 1779, the legislature voted to divide Guilford County into three pieces, Randolph, Guilford, and Rockingham. And in March 1779, the justices appointed by the state legislature had the first county court, and Randolph County took on an independent life of its own. Even then, the next 4 years weren't smooth sailing. The Continental Army came through in 1780 on its way south from Richmond to Hillsborough to Sherrill and Camden. 15,000 soldiers, women, and enslaved servants pretty much ate everything they could find and moved on to South Carolina, where they would have their butt kicked at the Battle of Camden. The result of that, British General Cornwallis came through North Carolina and started asking people to rise up and support the king. And that eventually gave us David Fanning, our Randolph County most important anti-hero, who led the Tory, the pro-British militia. The central position of Randolph County on all those roads and trails brought in so many people of different religions, creeds, and political point of views. It also caused a lot of friction, which came out in armed conflict between men loyal to the British government and men choosing to side with the new American government. Men like Andrew Balfour were shot dead on their doorsteps by the Tories. The Tories turned around and caught and summarily hung men because they were supporting the patriot cause, the American cause. Daily life was uncertain, dangerous, and frightening, with different versions of law and order enforced by each opposing side. Some of the scars from this period never healed and would arise again in Randolph 80 years later, when we had a similar inter-civil war during the American Civil War between Unionists and Confederates. Reminders of these periods of historic upheaval are still present and can be easily found in almost every family who's lived here a long time, including my own, including my father's side. His Trogdons supported the revolutionary government and had their property and lives damaged by the Tories. On my mother's side, her Criscos were imported by the British from Germany to fight as mercenaries against the Americans, and then they were stranded in New York after the war ended, and eventually made their way to North Carolina. And then 80 years later, they laid low in the woods to avoid being forced to take sides in the Civil War. So history does happen here. History is not just big names and battles in textbooks. History happens on our grassroots level, and it can range from ghostly Native Americans that we still find their projectile points in the ground when we plow for tomatoes. It can be pioneers and settlers clearing the forests for fields and building vanished log cabins and barns. It can be guys who get shot on their doorstep and guys who die of old age in their beds. History like that is all around us because it's the lives of everyday people. So all politics is local, is the saying, and all history is too. It's intensely local and intensely personal if we take the time to look closely.